All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something that might sound a little dry at first, but
Yeah.
trust me, it's actually super relevant to everyone listening.
Right.
The Privacy Act of 1974. We're talking about your data, how the U.S. government handles it, and what control you actually have over all that.
Hmm.
And our source for this deep dive is a page straight from the Department of Justice website,
Right.
which, let's just say, there are some pretty interesting things in there.
Yeah, it's funny. We talk so much these days about online privacy and big tech.
Right.
But the roots of data protection in the U.S.,
Uh-huh.
they actually go way back to this law,
Yeah.
this act from 1974.
Okay, so
Yeah.
for those of us who haven't, memorized every single U.S. law,
Right.
what exactly does the Privacy Act actually do?
Yeah, so it's basically a set of rules that are designed specifically for personal information that's held by the government.
Okay.
So, think about if you've ever filled out a form for, like a federal benefit, or if you've, had like a run-in with the law.
Uh-huh.
Any of that information is going to be under the watchful eye of this act.
So it's like a bodyguard for our data,
Exactly.
making sure the government isn't just throwing it around like confetti.
Exactly. Exactly. It sets these limits on what they can collect, how they can store it,
Oh, wow.
who they can share it with,
Okay.
the whole 9 yards.
Gotcha.
And this is where things get, kind of interesting.
Okay.
You've probably heard this term, systems of records.
Yeah, it sounds kind of ominous,
It does.
spy movie or something.
Right. Yeah, it definitely has that vibe.
Uh-huh.
But it's not as shadowy as it sounds.
Okay.
Essentially, it's just any group of records that an agency maintains that can be retrieved using, your name
Okay.
or an ID number that's linked to you.
Gotcha.
So, your tax records with the IRS, medical records with the VA,
Oh,
all
yeah.
that stuff. Those are systems of records.
That makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
But that means, hold on, there are tons of these systems out there, potentially holding all kinds of information.
Right.
How do we even know what's being collected?
Right. And that's the beauty of the Privacy Act.
Okay.
One of the key parts of it is this idea of transparency.
Okay.
Agencies can't just operate in the shadows. They have to publish notices about these systems of records in the Federal Register.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
The Federal Register?
Yeah.
Isn't that a massively
It is, yeah.
dense
Huge.
legal document?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
A lot of legal jargon in there.
Yeah.
But think about it like
Okay.
a restaurant menu,
Okay.
but for government data.
Interesting.
So it lets you see kind of what data dishes are being served up.
I like that.
Yeah, so you want to know what the FBI keeps on file? It's in there. You want to know about your student loan records?
Oh.
That's in the Federal Register.
So it's like a sneak peek into
Yeah.
the government's data kitchen.
Right, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, and you know what's even better?
What's that?
This whole idea of the Act's need-to-know principle.
Okay.
Agencies can't just share your info with whoever, whenever. They either need your written consent,
Right.
or the request has to fall under one of 12 very specific exceptions.
Okay. Now, those exceptions, that's what has me intrigued.
Yeah.
What if they need to share info for,
Yeah.
law enforcement purposes?
Yeah,
Does that automatically get a pass?
that is a great question.
Yeah.
And it kind of highlights how complex these exceptions can be.
Okay.
Well, law enforcement, yeah, of course,
Right.
can be a valid reason for sharing information.
Yeah.
It's not just a blanket excuse.
Right.
There are specific criteria
Gotcha.
that need to be met.
Okay.
So, for example,
Uh-huh.
the agency has to reasonably believe
Okay.
that the information is relevant to a criminal investigation.
So it's not just a free-for-all.
No, not at all.
There are still checks and balances.
Absolutely. And here's where it gets even better for you.
Oh.
The Privacy Act actually gives you some serious power.
Okay. What do you mean?
You have the right to access your records.
Okay.
See exactly what information the government's holding on you.
Great.
And if you find anything that's inaccurate
Uh-huh.
or incomplete,
You're saying we can, correct our government records?
you absolutely can.
Oh.
The Act gives you the right to request amendments to your records.
Seriously?
Yeah. And of course, there's a process, right?
Right.
But the power lies with you to ensure that the information that's being held about you is accurate.
That's amazing. I'm already feeling more empowered just knowing that
Right.
this is way more interesting than I thought it would be.
I told you.
Yeah.
The Privacy Act is full of these little nuggets that can really change how you think about your data.
Okay.
And believe me, we're just scratching the surface here.
All right, so we've got this like
Yeah.
foundational understanding now of the Privacy Act. Transparency, limited access, giving individuals some control over their data.
Mm-hmm.
But this was all created way before the internet, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
Back when,
Yeah.
like floppy disks were a big deal.
Right,
The
exactly.
digital age throws a whole new wrench into the works,
Okay, yeah.
which we'll get into next.
All right, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
So we've got this law written back when, folks thought 8-track tapes were the future.
Right.
Trying to govern data in the age of smartphones and, TikTok and all that.
Yeah, it definitely creates some tension there.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Uh-huh.
The Privacy Act is mostly focused on data that's collected directly from individuals,
Okay.
like forms, applications, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But now, we're leaving a digital trail everywhere we go,
That's true.
often without even realizing it.
Yeah, like our location data,
Right.
browsing history,
Mhm.
what we buy online,
Yeah, who we're friends with.
all that stuff. It's all out there.
It's all out there.
And we're not even talking about what private companies are doing.
Right, exactly.
We're sticking to the government today.
Right, and the Privacy Act, while, it was groundbreaking for its time,
Yeah.
it didn't anticipate this
Right.
sheer volume and variety of data that we have today.
Mm-hmm.
Back in '74, the idea of your fridge spying on you
Right.
was probably pure science fiction.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not a perfect fit
Right.
for the digital age.
No,
Yeah.
but surely there are ways to adapt it, right?
Yeah,
That's a great question.
could we just broaden the definition of systems of records
Yeah.
to include all this digital stuff?
Some legal experts argue for exactly that.
Okay.
They say the core principles of the act, like transparency, access,
Right.
accountability, those are all timeless.
Mm-hmm.
And they just need to be applied to modern tech.
So it's like taking a classic car,
Yeah,
giving it an electric engine, same stylish chassis, but updated for how we drive today.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
But there's another school of thought that says, no, no, no.
Yeah, okay.
We need a whole new vehicle altogether.
Like a brand new law.
That's what some folks are saying. Yeah, scrap
yeah.
the Privacy Act
Wow.
and start from scratch.
Okay.
They argue that the digital age presents fundamentally different challenges.
Okay.
For example,
Yeah.
the act doesn't really address
Uh-huh.
data that's inferred or analyzed,
Okay.
like predicting your political leanings based on your online activity.
Right. And that stuff can be used for all sorts of things.
Exactly.
From, targeted advertising to,
Right.
well, let's not go down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole.
Yeah,
But, it does raise some questions about control and
Right.
manipulation.
for sure.
Yeah.
It definitely does.
Right.
And that's why this debate
Mm-hmm.
about updating or replacing the Privacy Act is so important. It gets to the heart of what privacy means
Mm-hmm.
in a world where data is, the new gold rush.
So we've got these two camps.
Yeah.
Update the classic car or build a futuristic spaceship.
Right.
But where does that leave us,
Right.
The average person trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can actually do to
Yeah.
protect our privacy?
There is. And this is where knowing your rights under the existing Privacy Act becomes super important.
Okay.
It's not perfect, but it does give you some tools.
Okay, give us the rundown.
Right.
What can we actually do with this act?
Okay, so first,
Even in today's crazy digital world.
remember the power of asking questions.
Okay.
Anytime you're interacting with a government agency,
Right.
online or off,
Well,
don't be afraid to ask about their privacy practices.
ooh.
Like, what information are they collecting?
Okay.
Why are they collecting it?
Right.
How are they protecting it?
Yeah.
It's your data.
Makes sense.
You deserve to know.
So it's like being a savvy consumer, but for our data.
Exactly.
Like we wouldn't buy a car without knowing the gas mileage, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh.
And if something feels fishy,
Yeah.
don't hesitate to push back.
Okay.
Remember, you have that right to access your records.
Right.
Like, request them.
Okay.
See what's in there.
Yeah.
And if something's wrong, inaccurate, or just plain weird,
We can demand a correction.
you can absolutely request an amendment.
Wow.
Now, it is a process, right?
Right.
But it's a right that the Privacy Act guarantees you.
Okay.
And this is where that overview of the Privacy Act of 1974, 2020 edition
Mm-hmm.
that we mentioned earlier,
Right.
that comes in handy
Okay.
because it really breaks down those processes,
Gotcha.
explains the legal jargon,
Yeah.
helps you navigate the system.
So even though the act's from another era,
Mhm.
it's still relevant.
It is.
It gives us the tools we need
Yeah.
to be active participants
Exactly.
in our data privacy.
Rather than passive bystanders,
So, okay.
Exactly.
I like that a lot.
And there's one more crucial point that I think often gets overlooked.
What's that?
The Privacy Act isn't just about you as an individual.
Oh.
It's about holding the government accountable.
Oh, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so think about it. When agencies have to publicly disclose what data they're collecting and why, when they know that citizens can access and challenge their records,
Right.
it creates this system of checks and balances.
So it's not just about protecting ourselves. It's about making sure the government isn't overstepping its bounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that collective aspect is what makes this act so powerful, even today.
Yeah.
You know, it was designed to prevent the very real dangers of government overreach and the misuse of personal information.
I'm getting chills. This is way more than just a dusty old law.
It is.
This is like the foundation of a fairer, more transparent system.
It really is.
Wow.
And that brings us to the big question. What does the future hold for data privacy in the U.S.?
All right, so we've talked about how the Privacy Act's kind of like this, you know, old school superhero, still fighting the good fight for data privacy, even in the digital age. But is it enough?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're in uncharted territory here, you know. Think about AI, facial recognition, metaverse.
Well,
like the way we live and work and interact, it's changing so fast.
Right.
And our laws they're trying to catch up.
It's like trying to hit a moving target.
Yeah.
Right? By the time a new law's passed, the tech's already 10 steps ahead.
Exactly.
So what can we even do?
What?
Like, should we just throw up our hands and say, data privacy is dead, long live the algorithm overlords?
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, right.
Remember, like, this is a conversation that's happening right now. At all levels of society. You know, legal scholars, policymakers, tech experts, even everyday citizens like us. We're all grappling with these questions. And that engagement is crucial.
So what you're saying is don't just like doom scroll about the latest data breach. Actually, like,
exactly.
Get involved.
Yeah, educate yourself about these issues.
Okay.
Contact your elected officials. Support organizations that advocate for privacy rights. There's power in numbers.
It makes sense.
And our voices, collectively, can actually shape the future of data privacy.
That's empowering.
It is.
Instead of being afraid of the data monster under the bed, we're learning how to tame it.
Exactly.
But let's be real. Not everyone has the time or energy to become like a full-on privacy activist. What are some like small practical steps we can take in our own lives?
That's a great question. Start by just being mindful of what you share online. You know, do you really need to let that app access your location data? Maybe rethink those privacy settings on your social media accounts. You know, little choices like that can actually make a big difference.
It's like conscious shopping, but for our data.
I love it.
Reading the labels, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay, good analogy.
And don't underestimate the power of strong passwords. And two-factor authentication. You know, those are your first line of defense against data breaches. So basic digital hygiene still matters. It does.
Got it.
It does.
But what about those times when we have to share info with the government? Like filing taxes, applying for benefits, that kind of thing.
There's certain interactions that are just kind of unavoidable.
We can't exactly opt out of that.
Exactly. And that's where, you know, knowing your rights under the Privacy Act becomes even more important. So if you're providing information to a government agency, you know, don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, what are they collecting? Why are they collecting it? How are they going to use it? How are they going to protect it?
So it's not just about blindly filling out those forms. It's about engaging in a dialogue about our data.
Exactly. And if you're ever concerned about how your information is being handled, remember you do have that right to access and correct your records. It might take a little effort. But the Privacy Act, it gives you some recourse.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
It's a fascinating topic.
We went from Privacy Act, what's that? Understanding the nuances, limitation, even its potential in the digital age.
Exactly.
It's not just a legal document.
No.
It's a tool for empowerment.
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's the key takeaway here, right?
Yeah.
Data privacy isn't just about protecting ourselves from, like, some shadowy big brother figure. It's about agency control.
Right.
And shaping a future where technology serves humanity.
Yeah.
Not the other way around.
Beautifully put.
Thank you.
So, to our listeners out there,
Yeah.
if you're feeling inspired to take action, remember that overview of the Privacy Act document we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, that's a great place to start.
It's a great starting point to understand your rights and how to actually exercise them. And don't forget the Federal Register.
Oh, yeah.
That treasure trove.
That's right.
Of government data menus.
Yeah.
Your privacy journey starts now.
It does.
Stay informed.
Stay engaged.
Stay engaged. And remember your data.
Your story.
Your story.
That's right.
Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the Privacy Act of 1974.
Right.
Until next time. Stay curious. Stay empowered.
Stay safe out there.
And keep those data monsters at bay.
Exactly.